come the Hawks, the mighty Blackhawks.
Hello and welcome to today's Battle Mech review. Today we're going to be looking at the Blackhawk KU, or Cretan unit. I'm not quite sure what the KU is supposed to mean. We've been trying to find. I'm pretty sure it just stands for Cretan or Cretan unit, but I'm not quite sure. This is one of the first Battle Mech review I've done for the Inner Sphere Omnimech series I was doing, but it's not the first one I've recorded because of a variety of reasons. The main one being I was trying to find one of each of the Blackhawk KU variants to put in there, but I wasn't able to for a variety of reasons. Most of the machines that I get from here are highly customized, let's say, or highly modified in a way. It's a tiny bit odd here. The Blackhawk KU has been around for long enough that everybody has a few of those around. And nowadays, a lot of them are in the hands of all sorts of people who have their own configurations for it. And the standard-ish configurations that we've seen and heard of are not the most commonly seen. So it's just an odd thing here. I've managed to put a few together myself. I've got a few of the older ones, a few of the newer ones from Coventry, a few of the ones that have been used by the people in the Rassilake Dominions. So we'll see a few different body kits rather than a one or two body kits like I often have in those kind of videos, just because I was able to get a little bit more of a variety, let's say. So let's talk about this fun little mech. If you go through all the standard battle mechs and omnimechs that were used during the clan invasion by the clans, the Nova is probably one of the simplest of the lot. It's got nothing super fancy on it outside of an XL engine. The jump jets are built in, so they don't even have to be taken in and out as the pods. It doesn't have endosteel, it doesn't have ferrofibrous, it doesn't have a weird targeting computer. It doesn't even have any really fancy weapons, at least not on the original basic Prime configuration. It's just medium lasers, just a really fancy clan kind, which can kill you at the range of a large laser. Inner Sphere's engineer in Tex could basically grab a Nova and rebuild it from the ground up, more or less, using mostly Inner Sphere standard parts, even though it would downgrade the weapons and the engine would not be as good, and the heat sinks would be bigger, and, you know, there's limitation, but you could basically do a Nova out of spare parts. Grabbing the thing was not even that hard. The Nova was one of the most commonly mech throughout every single clan, and salvage and intelligence gathering missions in clan space to, you know, try to steal some stuff from them was a dangerous affair, but it was rather lucrative for any mercenaries or even regular commanders wanting to do it. To rebuild a clan Blackhawk, well, you had to do a few different things. You had to take out the ER medium lasers, if that's the one that you grabbed, and replace it with medium lasers. And in order to make the heat sinks fit, you generally had to take out the ANS, which is not terribly difficult in a clan mech, since they are pod mounted as well. Even if the engine was destroyed, you could still use an Inner Sphere 250 XL, which was not the most common engine at the time, and you would be able to make the thing work. It would be a little bit more heat efficient than a clan one, but you would lose on the range and a little bit on the damage. So it was a trade-off some commanders were ready to do. The engineers at Luthien Armor Works managed to reproduce the Omni technology fairly quickly after the Battle of Wolcott, in which the Combine managed to net a bunch of mint and perfectly functional clan Omnimechs. The first proofs of concept really came out right after the Battle of Luthien. There's some people saying that some of the prototypes ran during the Battle of Luthien itself, with the Raptor, a small 25-ton machine which borrowed heavily from the Flea and the Locust in terms of its body shape and performances. But in terms of weapon, it was very heavily armed. The fact that it actually worked and could be reconfigured on the go, and ultimately shown that it wasn't really space magic that was making clan mech work, really was a win all around for the Inner Sphere. Luthien Armor Works' next step was to up their game with the Omni technology and go with larger frames. Easiest for them was to reproduce things that already existed, so you had things like the Blackjack Omni and the Firestarter Omni that came out, both of which became more or less standard troopers and standard fighters for the Inner Sphere. Much later on, you have things like the Centurion Omni that came out, but that's not even from Luthien Armor Works. I'm not even sure why I put that on there. But one other thing that they also thought about was they looked at all the reconditioned Novas that was around and thought, well, can we do these ourselves? Technically, like I said, they could have just reproduced the original Nova / Blackhawk with the slightly bulkier 250 XL engine. Nothing really could have stopped them, and it's not like the clans would have sued them for gimmick infringement or getting problems with patents. They were not entirely linked together, and there's no general corporate court that covers both the clans and the Inner Sphere. What they moved towards, though, was something a little bit simpler in terms of a design, just because it would save them some money and some logistics in the long run. When making their own Blackhawk, they decided to go with a 60-ton frame, which allowed them to use a 300 XL engine in them, which was far more common and far easier to procure than the 250 XL that would have been needed in a 50-ton machine. At 60 tons, they also had a good understanding of that weight range, thanks to building quite a few dragons back in the day. Originally released in 3055, the Blackhawk KU was an instant hit as a simple, no-nonsense heavy mech with almost endless possibilities. In the spirit of international cooperation, which was strong in those days, Luthien Armor Works turned around and sold the design to other manufacturers, with the Federated Commonwealth being the most prolific one in the bunch. By the late 3050s, Korean, Coventry Metalworks, Starcore, and Victory Industries were all building the Blackhawk KU, most of them for the Federated Commonwealth, a good chunk of them for the Draconis Combine, with both Victory and Luthien Armor Works building them. But over the years, it's been said that the ones built by Coventry Metalworks were the best one of the bunch. True experience, I haven't seen much difference between the different ones. But the Coventry ones do have a specific body kit. The Korean ones follow the same Luthien Armor Works body kit with slight modification. You can tell where they come from by the body kit that you have. The Blackhawk KU falls into the small heavy category of mech at 60 tons, and it falls in the fast heavy since it goes faster than 64 kilometers per hour, using a 300 XL engine, giving it a top speed of 86 kilometers per hour. You get a set of jump jets as well, like your standards, classic and very decent models here, giving you a jump range of 150 meters. Those are not mounted in the pod, unfortunately. That would have been pretty useful, but I'm not even sure the people at Luthien Armor Works knew how to make jump jet works into pods by the time they were designing the Blackhawk KU. Similar to the Nova, it's built out of standard material, even though the tin says Alshane 52 Endo steel for the chassis. It's a standard 60-ton battle mech chassis. No frills about it. It's a little bit more complex because of how the Nova is set up and how they reproduced it on the Blackhawk KU, but it's not a difficult thing to repair once you figure it out. It is protected by 12.5 tons of standard plates, giving you about 25% more protection than your original Nova. You get 14 double heatsinks, 2 mounted in the engine and 2 mounted outside the engine, outside of the standard 10 that you have to have on any engine, giving you decent cooling, and pretty much similar to the original there, even though it takes up a little bit more room. You do lose the advanced combat computer, which allowed for a little bit more heat management. The people at Luthien Armor Works were not able to reproduce it. And being a larger mech, you do lose that low profile the Nova kind of has, allowing it to dodge in more shots. This still leaves you 17 tons of pod space, one more than the original Nova, which you might need because it's an Inner Sphere machine and you need to finagle your way around various configurations. The primary configuration of the Blackhawk KU is a solid brawler straight out of the original Nova's playbook. Each arm features 3 standard medium lasers backed by a pair of medium pulse laser, giving you very accurate power at long spitting range and decent range with the regular medium lasers. Each side torso also mounts a little small laser for backup, and I have seen quite a few of them where the small lasers are taken out and they replace those with a C3 slave unit, which is really, really, really good in the hands of a mech with a lot of medium lasers. You get 2 extra heat sinks, meaning that you can basically shoot all of your medium lasers at your art's content, and you'll have a little bit of extra heat building up here, but you just stop shooting the medium pulse lasers for a little bit. Something's going to be out of range anyways for you to be able to use it. It's perfectly functional as a brawler. It mimics that or Blackhawk KU with a little bit more accuracy at shorter range. I'm never a huge fan of medium pulse lasers, but in this particular case, you should be able to bring them into bear to deal the additional damage that they can do. It's really those small lasers that I find a little bit superfluous, and that's why I think the C3 unit version is a little bit superior. Alpha configuration is another one that mimics the original Nova, this time the Nova A. Each arm packs a big ERPPC, which is, well, not quite as good as a clan one, but it'll give you very good range and very good direct fire potential. Supporting this is a pair of anti-missile systems, allowing you to protect yourself against LRM counter batteries and actually protect other mechs if required. You get 2 tons of reload, which should be enough, but it basically gives you the same amount of shots in those anti-missiles as a single ton of clan reloads, and it's a bit of an issue. This particular model doesn't mount any extra heat sinks, and you will have to take a break between shooting both of your ERPPCs every once in a while, or you will run quite hot, especially if the anti-missiles are working overtime. It's not terrible, however, and you should be able to do a fire 2, fire 1, fire 2, fire 1 volley fire fairly simply. Bravo configuration copies the Nova once again with a ballistic energy approach. In one arm, you get an Ultra AC-5 with a single ton of reload, which should be enough for most fast engagements, but once things get dicey, you might not have enough rounds for the entire thing, or your Ultra AC-5 will jam, one of the two. Opposite of this, you have a close-range weapon, a large pulse laser, which will give you accurate and precise firepower when needed. It's sufficient, and it's going to do what it's meant to do. And honestly, it's not a bad setup. I would probably prefer an ER large laser to a large pulse laser and maybe more ammo. I mean, I would move things around personally. But, I mean, if you're just grabbing a Blackhawk KU-B, you should be able to be an asset in the fight for long enough. Charlie configuration is a Gauss boat with a single ton of a reload, meaning that you're not going to be able to stay in the fight for very long with it, but hopefully those 8 shots of Gauss rifle will make a difference. Opposite of this, you get a medium laser, so you have at least some form of defense if something gets close by, or if you shot your 8 shots and there's still people around. Seriously, this is one of the copies of the original Nova that I wouldn't advise people to use. Probably replace the Gauss rifle with an LB-10X or something like that. Get a little bit more ammo, get a little bit more weapons, and hopefully you will be able to stay in that fight long enough to make a mark. Delta configuration is also a potential sniper here. The main weapon is a 20 rack of LRMs with 2 tons of reload, which means you will be able to stay in the fight long enough here. The damage potential might be a little bit mitigated compared to something like a Gauss rifle, but it's pretty decent. It will allow you to do some bombardments. On the opposite side, you've got an ER large laser, which is another pretty decent sniper weapon, and it can also be used at closer range, and you have enough heat sinks to fire all of those weapons with very few issues. I like it quite a bit more than the original Nova D, which has an LB5X instead of the large laser for its backup weapon. And in that case, well, the ER large laser gives you more punch. You lose a little bit on the range. It's still a better setup, in my opinion. During Operation Bulldog and Operation Serpent, the second Starlink was fighting Clan Smoke Jaguar with the help of the Clan Nova Cats and a few different things there. But supplies were running low, so they had to start using the good clan weapons on their very own Omnimech. Configuration Romeo of the Blackhawk KU exploit Jaguar resources and combined them with a C3 slave unit because C3 units were quite common during that particular operation. This one mounts a pair of Clan ER large laser in the right arm, while the left arm has a pair of Clan 6 tube of SRMs, streak versions to give you that extra little bit of range, and with 2 tons of reload, well, you should be able to stay in the fight very long because they only shoot when you're going to get a perfect target lock. This is once again a very efficient brawler. It's going to be able to do a lot of neat little things, and it doesn't copy any of the Nova's standard configuration. It is really its own thing. Of course, you can't copy that configuration locally without some major changes, but still, it's a pretty decent thing to do if you've got the clan parts laying around. We got an actual copy of the original Nova in 3063 using the Blackhawk KU. This one uses 6 ER medium lasers, giving you a good amount of punch at medium range, but you don't have the destructive power of the clan model, and you even have a little bit less range. It's not quite as good, but I mean, it's still going to work. You have 19 double heat sinks to help manage the heat somewhat, and I've seen some smarter people around doing a 3-3 setup. Each arm has a set of 3 ER medium lasers and 3 standard medium lasers. It allows you to have better heat management, it allows you to have a little bit of a bracket fire range, and if necessary, you have the same kind of firepower at really close range, which is still enough to cause you major issues and potentially shut down. Uniform configuration is a derivative of that previous configuration, but that one is made for space combat. It wouldn't be able to do that underwater combat thing because you would have to set up UMUs in it, and well, you've got jump jets are mounted rather than pods. You get a ton of liquid storage in it to have some reactive mass for your jump jets to be able to use them in vacuum. The weapon on the left or right arm, it really depends on what you want here, are replaced with an hatchet in order to be able to breach the hull of dropship, jump ship, warships, space stations, whatever you need it to breach here. Basically, it lands on the target using that liquid storage there to get the jump jets going. Once you're landed on the target, you take that hatchet and you start cutting. ER medium laser is also mounted in the head as a backup, but it's a little bit weird here. I would probably play around and remove that laser and put some R-gel in, or something similar to a mass. Even though it doesn't quite work in space, you'd probably have to figure the thing around. You'd probably want to protect that pilot from vacuum, because battle mechs are able to operate in vacuum, but are not the best at doing it. While the jihadis were making sure that the Inner Sphere couldn't build Omnimechs anymore, at least not to be used against them, there's still a few configuration of the Blackhawk KUs that were coming out, and there were quite a few of them that were floating around already, and too many factories were building them for the word of Blake to really stop production. Boxshot configuration is a nice one, I would say here, using a heavy PPC as its main weapon, backed up by a pair of light PPC in the other arm. It functions fairly well, and it's going to give you very nice mid-range punch, at least in that era. The heavy PPC is comparable to a Clan ER PPC, even though it has a little bit less range. And the light PPCs, well, they give you the kind of punch of a medium laser, but at a very decent PPC range. One of the problems is that all of your weapons are going to have some sort of, minimum range. If things get close to you, you'll probably have to kick your target to make sure that you're able to get away. To improve the effectiveness of the whole thing, the targeting assembly is tied to a C3 slave unit, which was the fashion at the time. Another one which came out during the Jihad, but was basically started massive production after the Jihad, was the Golf configuration, which was officially introduced in 3089. As I said there, this is more or less a copy of what was used by a few different units here. For weapons, it's rather simple. It uses a snub-nose PPC and a trio of medium pulse lasers. Well, usually it was the fancy medium X-pulse lasers. It really depended on what people add. The official version of Golf configuration uses medium X-pulse rather than the medium pulse. You are a very good brawler with that. You're going to have a very okay range. And with the X-Pulse, well, it's going to run hot, but you're going to be able to take out targets at a reasonable range, while the medium pulse would be a little bit more limiting. Where it really shines, though, is in all the electronics that was added to it, with a tag allowing you to guide semi-guided LRMs or Aero 4 rockets, an advanced Bloodhound active probe to find targets, and an Angel ECM to protect you against enemy C3 units, or to just cause all-right havoc. This one can be used in scouting. This one can be used in brawling. It's a very good configuration that doesn't mimic anything the original Nova has, which is a bit of a fun thing in the end. X-ray configuration is generally an experimental configuration, and in this case, I'm not quite sure why they dubbed this one X-ray, because there's nothing actually fancy on it. The main weapon are 7 medium laser in each arm, giving you a massive amount of punch, let's be quite honest, and a C3 slave unit sitting next to the pilot in order for you to properly guide your shots, or help the others guide their shots. Heat generated by all those weapons would be quite high, but rather than using heat sinks, they add highly pressurized coolant pod to flush the excess heat rather quickly. I guess that was the experimental bit of tech on that thing, but coolant pods have been around for quite some time, and we kind of understand how they work. I'm not 100% sold on pressurized coolant pods rather than regular heat sinks, but medium lasers in a C3 unit is generally a very good configuration, and coolant pods in the end are pretty cool if you know how to use them. I don't often talk about specialized configuration when doing these kinds of video, but there's one that turned into a more standard configuration over the year, and it's the Blackhawk KU that was used by Tahi Albert Benton of the Sorensen Saber. He needed something with a C3 command unit, and he decided that his Blackhawk KU was going to be the command unit for his group. In the early Jihad, he had all sorts of fancy clan gear mounted on it rather than standard Inner Sphere one, but that configuration has been copied with Inner Sphere parts over the years. The shoulder mounts a snub nose PPC, originally a clan ER PPC, giving you decent mid-range punch on the common version, and very good long-range punch on Albert Benton's version. Each arm also features a pair of ER medium lasers, once again clan graded on the original and standard graded on everybody else, giving you decent engagement capabilities. It's a functional C3 command unit, and something that some people might want to get with all the other C3 machines in the Omnimech Inner Sphere lineup. The Rassalhig Dominions holds a surprisingly large amount of Blackhawk KUs, a lot of them having been inherited from whatever they had left when they turned into the Dominion from the Free Rassalhig Republic, and quite a few of them also having been captured by the Ghost Bears during their various wars and various conflicts they had with the Draconis Combine. Bergen is not building any of the Blackhawk KUs, but they have their own upgrade kit and their own refit kit for it, which is something that is pretty common. One thing that they have is a lot of XL300 engines, which is not rare by any stretch of the imagination, and they've started putting them in the Blackhawk KUs that they've recovered and used. Basically, this turns the Blackhawk KU into a regular Blackhawk with an extra ton of plate and an extra ton of pod space. Many commanders quite enjoy it, especially in the second line units, and you can use any of the standard Nova setups with tiny little tweaks, generally extra heat sinks. Quite popular in that particular group overall. I do enjoy the Blackhawk KU, and I do enjoy working on it and doing my own configurations for it. A few of the standard configurations are good, but leaning too heavily on copying the clan model is a bit of a weakness in this case. Adding a C3 unit to most of the uses is also a very nice touch, as long as you have a master to run them with. If you've got that particular config of with a C3 master there, it is going to work. And I mean, you can easily make an entire lance of Blackhawk KUs with different configurations and C3 computers that will work fairly well. Hopefully, more of the modern versions start using a full clan engine over the years. I mean, GM's building the things, Defiant's building the things, so maybe they will be able to sell them to Korean or to Coventry in order to make their own things. And, well, a better Blackhawk KU is a better thing for everybody to use. So I thank everybody for listening to me for so long. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.